Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. And welcome to Casa's 17th annual Speak Up for Children breakfast. My name is Kathy Kerr, and I have the honor of being the executive director of this great organization. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here this morning. I know sometimes it's hard to get down here with the traffic and everything else, so I know a lot of you made an extra effort that don't usually come downtown, so thank you so much. Collectively in this room, we were about 400 people, elected officials, business and community leaders, sponsors and child advocates, here today because we care about our most valuable citizens in our community, our children. And in particular, innocent child victims of abuse and neglect. You've seen our kids on the news. The most horrific physical, emotional, and sexual abuse situations. These are our Casa kids. Infant born addicted to heroin. We're seeing a lot of that these days, unfortunately. Young child hospitalized due to injuries by father. Stepfather arrested and charged with sexually abusing young stepdaughter. These are innocent, scared, defenseless children who, through no fault of their own, are in the worst situations that their young minds could ever imagine. Children who are removed from their homes and have their lives turned upside down. But that's where Casa comes in. Ohio law requires that each of these children have a guardian ad litem assigned to them. They provide a crucial and significant service to our community. No other program provides trained, committed, and passionate volunteers who become officers of the court and who advocate for their best interest. They become a voice for these vulnerable children as they navigate the child welfare system. They make sure these children do not fall through the cracks, and they get to know these children well enough to make fact-based recommendations to the judges and magistrates that have to make all these very important decisions about these children and what's going to happen with visitation rights and maybe custody placement and support services. Casa volunteers are often the only consistent and caring presence involved from the beginning to the end of a child's case in juvenile court. They monitor each child until the case is closed and the child is in a safe and permanent home. Last year, Casa served 826 abused and neglected children in our community. But unfortunately, there are many, many more children in our community that would benefit from having a Casa volunteer. We hope that you will open your heart and mind to the thought of perhaps becoming a guardian, to turn that sad face into a happy face, knowing that they have at least one person in their young life who's going to look out for them, always be there for them until their nightmare's over. I'd like to make a couple thank yous real quick, and then we're going to pause for breakfast here in a couple moments. But I would like to say a couple thank yous. First of all, to our treasurer, volunteer guardian ad litems that were able to make it here. Most of them work. But those that are here today, could you please stand so we can acknowledge you and say thank you for the work you do? They're all around the room. I would also like to ask our board We have a wonderful board of trustees that volunteer their time and treasure and their talent, and they just go the extra mile to support our mission and to be there for these kids as well. Could I ask my board to stand up, please? And we have a number of elected officials in the room today that I would like to thank them for taking the time. I know a number of them are judges and they have a court docket, so I think they're kind of sneaking out to be here, and I appreciate that. But we're going to start out with introducing Franklin County Commissioner Marilyn Brown. Marilyn, if you could stand. Commissioner Brown's been a long time supporter of Casa and our children and our mission. I'd also like to recognize several of our key judges from our juvenile and domestic court that are here and that we work with every day. We have Judge James Brown, love that name. Judge Terry Jamison, Judge Dana Price. And we also have several magistrates with us that we work with as well every day. Judge Woody Hudson, Magistrate Hudson, I was looking right at him. Michelle Stroud, I know, Michelle Stroud. And you'll be seeing her later in our video. We have several other judges, Judge from Common Pleas Court, David Kane, and I know Muni Court, Cynthia Murphy here as well. I believe our county treasurer is here, Cheryl Brooks Sullivan. Our Muni Court clerk, Lori Kayak. We're also to have with us today our Secretary of State, John Husted. Thank you for being here. And several state representatives, Herschel Brown, Bernadine Kennedy Kent, and Compass City Council member Michael Stinziano. So thank you all for being here. Collectively, you all support Casa and our kids and our mission in only ways that you can, and we just thank you for everything that you do. So the partnership represented in this room, from child advocates, social services, and court professionals, sponsors and volunteers and donors, make it possible to serve the children that we do. Finally, my role is to thank our sponsors. They're listed on the stage and they're in your program, but we do want to say a big thank you for the folks that have sponsored this event so that we can have this breakfast and share our mission and our message with you. And I will go through and read those real quick. Nationwide Insurance, Lane Bryant, the Crane Group, the law firm McKittrick, Lewis and Harris, Ice Miller Legal Counsel, Vorey Sater, Seymour and Pease, Kegler Brown Hill and Ritter, the Huntington, the Dave Thomas Foundation, AEP, Grange Insurance, Littler Medelson, Safelite Auto Glass, Taft Law, MT Technologies, GBQ Partners, and Cameron Mitchell Restaurants. Thank you all for your support. We're going to take a moment now, instead of just hearing from me, and listen to a short video from one of our other court magistrates, Larry Sanchez, that is in Florida, checking on his mom right now and couldn't be here. But I'd like to share this video with you. So if you can play the video, please, just take a moment.
Good morning, my name is Larry Sanchez. I'm a magistrate here in juvenile court. I started working as a magistrate in 1996, and I've been told you're eating breakfast now, so I hope you're enjoying breakfast. I wish I were there with you. And I'm here to talk about Casa, one of my favorite organizations in the court. And I'll tell you why. There are very few volunteer opportunities in the court system that you can really make a difference almost immediately. And let me tell you what I mean by that. As a lay guardian, you do an investigation. You speak to families, you speak to children that are physically abused, sexually abused, neglected, that are dependent, that are educationally neglected or abused many times. And from the very get-go of your investigation, you begin to gather information, you begin to see the needs of this family, you begin to see the needs of this child. When you make that presentation to a magistrate, to a judge, or to anyone in the court system, You're providing us with invaluable information. The minute you make that recommendation, the minute you give us that information, we're able to change a child's life. So if that child in the morning didn't have anything to eat, I can almost guarantee that by the end of the night, that child will have food, clothing, and a place to sleep. If that family didn't have housing, if that family had medical needs that weren't being met, or even more importantly, that child has been medically neglected. I've had children that have had horrible dental conditions, horrible medical history. And the moment that you provide me with that information, we're able to make a change. And that's a rarity in volunteer work, because sometimes it takes a while, it stays a process. This is one of those opportunities that your investigation almost immediately makes a difference for a child's life. And for that, I thank you. I think it's a great volunteer opportunity. I think it's a great organization. And if I were a magistrate, I'd be one of you. So with that, I say, Casa, good job well done. Thank you very much.
So we're going to take a break so you can enjoy some breakfast and the people at your table, and we'll resume the program in about 10 minutes. Thank you. My pleasure now. I get to introduce our board member, Gary Spitznagel. Gary's been on the board for over 3 years, and he's the managing director for AEP Fossil and Hydro Generation. Now, I'm not real sure what that means, but I know it's important. And besides being a leader on our board, he's co-chaired this breakfast the last couple of years, and we are fortunate that he helps bring the talent of the video talent of AEP to Casa, who is happy, and we appreciate it so much. They're going to show a film here in a few minutes. But anyway, Gary, would you like to come up? Thank you.
Three years ago, as Kathy said, I began searching for a way to help children in the foster system. A colleague and friend of mine introduced me to Casa, and it was soon clear it was a great fit. Dale, thank you so much for that. Through Casa, I can speak for the voices of the abused, neglected, and voiceless children of the community. The experience is powerful and it's personal. You see, as a child, I fought to survive in a world that did not speak for me. A world that seemingly did not want to hear my voice. Divorced when I was young, my parents went on to live their own lives, partying, dating, and marrying. It was as if we weren't even there. When I was 8, the courts declared my mom unfit and stripped her of custody. I was there, yet I think about it today and I still can't believe that at 30 years old, my mom was married to an 18-year-old boy. By 9, and living with my dad and his new family, I found myself in the emergency room with trauma and scars to my body and head that I could no longer hide. It had been a violent and chaotic year, but I thought finally we're safe. The doctors, the police, the social workers talked to us, but oddly, they didn't hear our voice. You're going to have to go back home and live with your dad, they kept telling us. How could they see the wounds, hear the cries, hear the stories, and yet not hear us? Scream, say you'll run away, my sister told us as we sat side by side on an ER examination table. Whatever you do, don't stop screaming, she told us. And finally, if only for a moment, they heard us. I can only imagine today what that scene must have looked like in the ER. For most of the next year, my brother, my sister, and I lived in different foster homes in different cities and went months without seeing each other or even speaking to each other. Each of us forced to tell our stories alone, and nobody heard. Visits with counselors and social workers were so frustrating. I would answer their questions as best as I could. I told them what happened. They would shake their heads and say, "That didn't happen. That's not possible. That cannot be true." I would speak, but clearly I didn't have a voice. I wondered, as you all came into the room today, if you looked at the screens and saw the quotes that were shown as you walked in. What did I do wrong? One little girl said. Why does my father hit me? A boy said as he sat on the steps. Why can't I see my brothers and sisters anymore? And I want to feel safe, another girl said. Those were my sister's thoughts, my brother's thoughts. Those were my thoughts. And I can assure you, those were the very same thoughts that the loneliness and the shame that every single day, hundreds and hundreds of children in Franklin County are feeling and thinking. Now, obviously, my story had a happy ending. I'm here today, and I'm blessed to be here, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. Somebody finally heard my voice. But I often think of my foster siblings, and I just wonder, where are they today? But what an amazing blessing it is to be here today, and the fact that we have Casa today. It's incredible that through Casa we have people to come alongside, to listen, to care, to validate, and to advocate for the voiceless. My past drives me to seek better for these children. Because of my experiences, I'm motivated to see this cycle broken. Each of you has a story. Like me, you are all here for a reason. Please let me know, let us know how we can help you make a difference and bring a voice to the voiceless. I'd like to take a moment and recognize a group of fantastic people in the room who work tirelessly day in and day out to ensure that the mission of Casa is being carried out. Casa has a team of 13 people who strive to provide the voice to abused and neglected children, and who work alongside more than 240 active volunteers to ensure their success. If you're a staff member at Casa, please stand up and be recognized. Thank you guys. I love you all. And now, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker and MC for the morning. Tracy Townsend is no stranger to Columbus. As the noon and 5:30 p.m. anchor for 10 TV, Tracy has reported the news to the community day after day, and she does so in an award-winning way. Tracy has won numerous journalistic awards in her career, including an Emmy and the Ohio Associated Press Media Editors Award for Best Anchor. Tracy will ask the question, can we be the change? Please join me in welcoming Tracy Townsend.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, we don't be so somber. Good morning. It's Friday. I was celebrating that Wednesday, but that's another story. First, I want to thank Casa of Franklin County for inviting me back. It's always great to be asked to do something again, because it means you didn't step on too many toes. It has been great working with Shelley. She's very organized, and it's good to see Gary. And Gary, thank you for sharing your story. I met Shelley and Gary last year, and they're very impressive. And I knew of Gary's story, and so I'm just really glad that he shared it with you all, because it really speaks to what we're about this morning. I'm glad that he certainly has used his story as motivation for the service that he is providing Franklin County right now. It really is an honor to share with you, for those of you who are new to Casa, the stories of the work that they do, and to just remind those of you who are familiar with it of its importance. It's just really terrific work that Casa does each and every day. And in the course of the past year, we can all say we've seen a lot in the news. I looked at Kathy this morning and I said, can you believe it's been a year since we were all here last year? You've seen the headlines. We certainly report on those headlines, and clearly there is a road ahead, and that's why we're here and looking to many of you to join this effort. The foster care system, as you know, is growing. The opiate epidemic is at an all-time high, and for some reason our state ranks at the top in so many of those lists related to the opioid epidemic. Domestic violence, as we know, not showing any signs of decreasing. And again, these are the stories that we cover every day. They're the stories that people come up to us and say, why isn't there ever any good news? And this happens every single week. And after close to 30 years of being a journalist, and if you're trying to count, I started when I was in high school. Some of the stories that we are reporting, they don't shock us anymore. They leave those of us who have the gift for gab, who are never at a loss for words, truly at a loss. Sometimes the things that we say are only suitable for a newsroom, so I won't share them with you, but I just want to tell you that we are just shocked by the things that we see and we report on daily. I mean, really, when you think about it, how could somebody choose a life of abuse? Especially when they have children. I don't know how many of you have children or no children in your lives, but you think about the kids, the children who need those parents to survive. In our country, nearly 700,000 children experience abuse or neglect each year. So instead of being outside, playing with their neighbors, going to school, enjoying schoolwork, creating those happy family memories that so many people are fortunate to have, they are going to court. They are at court hearings. They're trying to make an adjustment to new foster homes, transitioning to new schools, which has to be overwhelming. It really has to be a truly heavy burden for a child to carry. In Franklin County, 27 children were left without a sense of hope after having been abused and were neglected at the hand of someone they thought loved them, someone who was supposed to care for them. So yes, we can be the change that is so necessary in this place we call home. Franklin County is truly fortunate to have Casa. And Casa makes such a change. And in talking at our table this morning, to think that there are 88 counties in our state, and 88 counties, all 88 counties do not have Casa, truly we can be the change. And I think really the time is now. Because without the team of volunteers that you have in Casa, there is going to be a failure to improve the lives of children. And when you think about it, children who've been abused and neglected, they are more likely to go down that same path that they see their parents going down. And that cycle just repeats itself, choosing violence over school, violence over safety, going to jail, going to prison as an adult, and repeating grades in school. And I don't have to tell you, but I'm going to anyway. Those grade cards came out yesterday for the state of Ohio, and we reported on the grades. And interestingly enough, this is a little sidebar because I like sidebars. It didn't matter if you're in Columbus or you're in the suburbs. I'm not calling out any suburbs, but there are some issues all over. So clearly you see that there is a need. And that is really why when I come to this breakfast, when I interact with so many of you before this gathering, I really am amazed at the work that Casa does, the legacy, the foundation that a child can get a new start when they interact with a Casa volunteer. It really is amazing. And when you think that Franklin County is the only organization in the community that really is training these volunteers to look after abused and neglected children and then represent them in court, it's something to be grateful for. When a child does not have a voice in a situation, when a child doesn't feel that anybody is hearing them, they're living in a situation that's out of control, a Casa guardian ad litem steps in, acts as their guide, acts as the person who gives them that strength and their voice. Casa is a volunteer-powered organization of compassionate and committed people who believe that every child deserves a safe and permanent home and really a promising future. So my friends, we can be the change. We need your support. As community members, we often ask ourselves, what happens to the children we see in the news, those children who have been abused and neglected? Where do they go? How can we help them? We also know that we can sit here today and we hope that they're going to get a chance at something better, but unfortunately, I don't know that that really happens unless they have this interaction with Casa. And we can only hope that a child is going to have a Casa guardian ad litem advocating for them. Right now, we'd like to have you take a minute to look at a video. This is a video that reminds you of the friendship that can be found in the most unlikely places. It's the story of a former Casa youth who grew up, bounced around, was separated from her family, and really left in a situation where there wasn't much hope. And then she met her Casa volunteer, and her life began to change. And now the rest of her story.
I was taken away from my parents at a very young age, and I was sent to a foster home with my sister. My brother was sent to a separate foster home. My mother was fighting to get us back at this point, so she had asked my grandparents in Indiana to take custody of us because she did not like the fact that we were all split up.
Many children's voices need to be heard in court. Just like Tesla, it's important that we as magistrates understand the experiences that the youth who come before us, what they've had. Some of them have been separated from their families.
I was on the case with these 3 children from 1999 to about 2003, 2004. The case would open and close as motions were filed. The mother wanted custody back and the grandparents didn't want to give it up.
In Tesla's situation, the kinship may not have been appropriate, but at the time, that was the best place for her to go and for her siblings to go.
Throughout my life in Indiana with my grandparents, we grew up in a very abused home for 11 and a half years, which involved my case being reopened in 2008 and me being moved back to Columbus, Ohio.
I did a home visit with their mother. We probably had some drug screens. She had stable housing and work. I recommended that the children go back to live with their mother, and the case was closed.
Going through the stages of life with living with my mother, it was a new environment for me. Joey and I spoke on a couple more occasions after that.
In the situation where there is a volunteer, and in particular Joanne and Tesla's relationship, the volunteer guardian ad litem does become close with the kids. The volunteer may not necessarily end after those 2 years or longer that they're on the case. They are always there as a person for the children to come back to.
I was 17 years old. There was a physical altercation between me and my mother. I actually reached out to Joanne again because it was just getting out of hand and I didn't know where else to turn at that moment.
I had to call Children's Services Hotline and get them involved. We didn't open a case in the courts. It was a voluntary situation. We got Buckeye Ranch and some counseling involved. I stayed in contact with her until she graduated. Once they're 18, if they want to contact their Casa volunteer, they can. And she was going through her phone and eliminating emails that she didn't need anymore. She zapped one to me and said, "Hey, I found your name in your email list, and I just wanted to kind of check in with you and see how you were doing." And that sparked an interest between the two of us, and we've been going out to lunch and just kind of hanging out together once in a while.
I love helping people and I love helping people learn. And that's just basically kind of came from the past that I lived in, having Joanne in my life and her helping me and her leading me. In my experience with Casa and all the people that have entered my life since I was in the system, I think it's a very valuable experience to be able to have somebody that doesn't have to stand in for you and speak up for you, but they want to. They want to speak up for the children that can't speak up for themselves at that moment. They want to care for those kids. And I think that has been probably the biggest impact on my life, is having somebody who wanted to care about me that didn't have any reason to care about me.
With a child who has formed that type of a bond, especially between Tesla and Joanne, they can come back and know that that person was an important role in their lives when they were going through a very difficult time in their young lives. That bond bond just goes on, and they know forever that that person is there.
When I see a Casa volunteer, I know that this is someone who is passionate. So the person is not just here because it's a role, but this is someone who has a vested interest in ensuring that children are treated fairly and that children have a voice in the courtroom.
She's a very bright young girl. She's done very well. She's got a full-time job, and she's got to go places. She's a very smart, bright child. I really enjoy spending time with her.
That's what this is all about. A fantastic story, and I loved hearing Tesla say that she found her voice. And so it is really tremendous to hear that, and we're really glad that Tesla felt comfortable and wanted to share that story with us. Each year, Casa hosts a recognition ceremony for their volunteers in appreciation of their tireless work. And as you just saw, it has to be a job. And we also celebrate their advocacy for young children. At the ceremony, the team recognizes one individual with what is called the Speak Up for Casa Award. It's given to a volunteer who had the greatest impact on Casa and advocacy for children within that last year. And while each and every volunteer that Casa has makes a lasting impact on the lives of children, in 2016, that award was given to Tiffany Quattlebaum. Show her picture there. Can we give her a round of applause? I wanted to tell you a little bit about Tiffany. She was placed on a case that involved a baby born addicted to drugs. The children on the case were placed out of the state, and Tiffany made sure that she was giving the children out of state, she was visiting those children despite the distance. The case presented many challenges, as you can imagine, including Tiffany going through 8 days of trial to ensure that the best outcome was able to be reached for those children. And in the end, Tiffany's wishes were granted by the court, removing them from the out-of-state placement and putting them instead in a safer situation. So once again, let's give a round of applause to Tiffany and her work as a guardian ad litem. It's now time for you to make a change. And as you heard Gary say, and as you can read in your program, I do work as a journalism. I work in journalism. Doesn't sound like it this morning, but I promise I do. I need just a little more coffee. I ask a lot of questions, and it's so hard to be a journalist in this room with all these people that I know. And I'm supposed to be objective, so for those of you who have a question, this is not something I'm objective on, not children, sorry. Anyway, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, and there are 3 simple ones. Can we make a change in the life of a child who becomes a young woman like Tesla? Can we make that change for the over 2,700 children fighting to have a good life? Can we speak up for a child? So there is a big goal we're going to achieve today on this Friday before Ohio State goes out and whoops Army. You can see that on the screen. Each and every dollar that you donate today is going to have an impact on a child's life, whether you are helping to support those critical home visits, making sure a child doesn't fall through those cracks of an overburdened child welfare system, or maybe you want to help support the efforts to recruit more community members so that they will consider becoming a Casa volunteer. And I'm going to just do this one thing because I met this young lady when I came in. Beverly, can you stand up? Oh, sorry, Beverly, I caught you off guard there. But Beverly, yes, Beverly, you. She's so lovely and so caring. And I wanted to point her out because Beverly is the Director of Volunteer Management. And so maybe that's something you want to do. Thanks, Beverly. We want you to consider becoming a Casa volunteer. So no matter what, your generosity, your time, your treasure, your talent will give a child a chance, a hope for a better future. So, as they say, open your hearts, open your checkbook, get out your credit card, and join us and give to Casa of Franklin County, because really, without you, these kids have no voice. And on a personal note, it would be great to tell a good story sometime, you know? If you do make a donation of $500 or more today, hint, hint, we're going to welcome you to the major giving societies. Right now, we have some lovely folks passing out your donation envelopes. They'll be right there at your table. You can also use the QR reader that's in the middle of your program. You can scan that donation, make that donation online. And again, really, Casa is always in need of more volunteers. It is a simple equation. When there are more volunteers, there's the ability to serve more children. And when you think about the things that you see on the news, you read in the newspaper, you read online, there are more children to be served. The actions of just one volunteer can mean everything. Once you are trained, it takes about 8 to 12 hours a month. So volunteering could be an option. Any way that you can join us, that you can speak up for the children this morning is greatly appreciated. As I told you, not really too objective on this one. Choosing to speak up for children and be involved, whether that be telling the stories in a different way, telling the stories, or when I retire at some point, got a kid that has to go to college, so that won't be anytime soon, volunteering. This is an important organization, an important thing to be a part of. And so we thank you so much for joining us this morning, for your generosity. It's 8:50. This does conclude another fantastic event. We certainly hope that you leave today, your tummy's full, your heart's full, because you've joined in the effort to make a difference. Also, at your table in the center, you're going to find a little book that we are hoping will help you to find a child, find a friend, and inspire them. Help yourself and do take those books with you today. Again, thank you everyone. We hope you enjoy the rest of the day. And thank you for joining us this morning. I'm also told that the centerpieces, those flowers, are available too. Take care, everyone.